I was left out in the storm as if I had never been their daughter. Some families fall apart slowly, tiny cracks growing over the years until there's nothing left to hold them together. But mine shattered in a single moment, on a dark, rain-soaked road, when my parents decided I no longer had any worth. My name is Nora Adams. I turned 16 last month. I live in Colorado Springs, a city surrounded by breathtaking mountains, where winter always arrives early and settles in like stone in your chest. I used to think this place was home. I used to think they loved me. I began showing neurological symptoms when I was 11. The first hand tremors were merely confusing, but things got worse quickly. Constant loss of balance, chronic fatigue, and migraines that stretched on for hours. The doctors called it a chronic movement disorder. To my parents, it was just a bottomless pit swallowing their money and freedom. We weren't wealthy, but we were managing. My dad worked as a mechanic, my mom was a dental office receptionist. In the beginning, when I was hospitalized, they held my hand. They still had hope. But as the bills grew thicker and my body weaker, their eyes changed, turned into something so cold, I didn't dare give it a name. Then came that night. Rain had started in the late afternoon. The sky turned dark earlier than usual, and my mom told me to get in the car without saying where we were going. "Routine doctor's checkup," she said, without meeting my eyes. I got in, silently, hugging the small backpack I always carried to the hospital. I sensed something was wrong when my dad turned onto a dirt road that led deep into the woods, far from the neighborhood, where the phone signal had vanished miles ago. The car jolted over potholes, and pain shot up my spine. "Dad, this isn't the way to the clinic," I whispered, my throat dry. No one answered. My mom stared ahead like I didn't exist. My dad's knuckles turned white from gripping the steering wheel so tightly. Then the car stopped. There were no houses around, just darkness, trees, and the relentless drum of rain on the roof. I looked at them, waiting for some awful joke to be revealed. "Get out," my dad said, his voice as flat as a news anchor's. I gave a nervous laugh. "What? It's raining!" "Get out," my mom repeated, emotionless. "Take your backpack. Everything you need is in there." I looked down. When had the backpack been packed? I hadn't touched it. Inside were a few clothes, some medicine, a bit of dry food, and $200 stuffed in an envelope. "What did I do wrong?" I asked, my voice breaking through the thunder. "It's not what you did," my dad said. "It's what you've become." My mom turned away. My dad got out, opened my door, and yanked me into the freezing rain. I screamed, begged, clung to the car door, but he pried my hands off without hesitation. My legs gave out, and I collapsed into the muddy ground. Rain soaked through my thin jacket. Mud clung to my knees like ice. "Why are you doing this?" I cried out, rain mixing with tears. "Because we can't live like this anymore," my mom said, finally looking at me. But her eyes, they weren't the eyes of the woman who used to tuck me in and chase monsters from under my bed. No words of love, no tears. They got back in the car, shut the doors, and drove off into the night, leaving me with the fading sound of the engine and the blood-red glow of their taillights. I tried to get up, but my legs wouldn't respond. The tremors had started. I crawled toward the edge of the road, praying someone, anyone, would pass by. But there was nothing. Nothing but the pounding rain and the bitter cold. Just me, alone. I don't know how long I lay there in that skin-stinging chill. The rain kept falling, each drop stabbing my skin like needles. Every time I tried to move, my body convulsed. My legs were nearly useless. Pain coursed from my hips down to my feet, dragging me under like a current of despair. I truly thought I was going to die there. Until I saw a light, soft, yellow, not the harsh white of my parents' car. This light didn't speed past like the others. It stopped. I heard a door open, then heavy, careful steps splashing through the puddles. I wanted to scream for help, but all that came out was a croak. My head felt heavy, my vision blurred from rain and pain. And then, someone knelt beside me. A warm hand brushed my hair away from my face. "Noah," the voice whispered, low and hoarse, but carried a haunting familiarity. I forced my eyes open. That face, blurred by rain and shadows. But those eyes, gray-blue like a winter sky. I had seen them 100 times in childhood memories. "Derek?" I whispered. He nodded, his strong arms wrapping around me, lifting me from the muddy ground as if I weighed nothing at all. "You're safe now," he said. "I've got you, Nora." I woke up again on a bed that wasn't mine, but it was warm. The small room had plain wooden walls and smelled faintly of pine and old ash. A fire crackled softly in the corner stove. A thick blanket covered me, and my soaked clothes had been replaced with clean pajamas. No resolution. I stirred. My head ached slightly, but my mind was clear. A bottle of water sat on the nightstand beside a small vial labeled in neat handwriting. 4 seizures. Use as needed. Someone was sitting next to the bed. I turned my head. The man was still there, the firelight dancing across his face. Leaner than I remembered, broad-shouldered, with a scruffy beard and hair brushing the back of his neck. But those eyes hadn't changed. "It's really you?" I asked. Derek nodded, smiling softly. "It's me, kiddo. You disappeared since I was 8. 9 years, he sighed. "I didn't vanish. I was forced to leave." I sat up and grabbed his hand. It was still large and calloused, just like when he used to carry me around the backyard during calm summer days. "Why?" Derek looked down, his face tightening. "That was the year you were diagnosed. Dad refused to take you to Boston for specialized care, even after the local doctor insisted." I argued. I said I'd get a job, save money. He lost it. Screamed that I was disrespectful, that you were a burden, dragging the whole family down. Then he kicked me out. I was speechless. For years I'd blamed him, thought he had abandoned me just like they did. "I came back," Derek continued. "Sent letters, called, even showed up at your school, but they blocked everything. Dad said he'd call the police if I contacted you again. They wanted you to believe I forgot you." My blood ran cold. "How did you know to find me that night?" "I'd been watching them for 3 weeks. Derek answered, his voice low like he didn't want the wind to hear. "I saw them drain the medical fund under your name, sell the car, get rid of furniture, then tell the neighbors they were starting over. I knew something wasn't right. 3 days ago, I secretly attached a GPS tracker to their car, and tonight, when they drove out into the woods up north, I followed." He paused, then spoke as if each word hurt. "Saw them drag you out of the car. I heard you scream. But I had to wait. I had to record everything. I needed proof." I clutched my chest, where my heart felt like it might collapse. I hadn't just been abandoned. I had been erased. They tried to make me disappear like I never existed. "Either they drove off," Derek said. "I ran to you. You were barely conscious, freezing and in shock. If I had come a few minutes later..." He didn't need to finish. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat quietly by the fire, staring at the flickering embers while my mind swirled with 1,000 storms. Derek slept on the couch, his head resting on a backpack like someone who had traveled far and long. He had spent nearly a decade searching for me, building this hideout, collecting every piece of evidence about the truth buried deep. I gazed out the window. Snow had started falling gently, covering the cabin roof in white, but this time I wasn't afraid. Because I wasn't alone anymore. And I woke up the next morning to golden sunlight filtering through the wooden window, casting soft threads across the floorboards. Derek was already up. I heard the rhythmic chop of wood from behind the cabin. The small kitchen smelled of fresh coffee, and on the table was a neatly clipped stack of documents. The top page read, Medical Assistance Fund, Nora Adams, fully withdrawn, $46,820. I picked it up, my heart clenched. I found it in a hidden account under Dad's name, Derek said as he walked in, gloves dusted with snow. They drained the entire community fund that was started when you got sick, and that's not all. I sat down, my hands trembling. Derek pulled a small black USB drive from his jacket pocket and plugged it into the laptop on the table. The screen lit up, displaying a list of files with chilling titles: Clinical Trial Contract, Neurogene Inc., Payment Records, Encrypted Medical Files. Neurogene, I frowned. What kind of company is that? Derek sighed, eyes fixed on the screen. A pharmaceutical company in Seattle specializing in neurological treatment research. But based on what I found, they were once accused of using children as test subjects for a drug that hadn't been approved by the FDA. Then suddenly everything went quiet. I stared at the screen like it might swallow me whole. Derek clicked on a file, Contract, Robert and Elaine Adams. I held my breath. Cold clinical words ran across the screen. Party A agrees to enroll biological daughter Nora Adams, born in 2009, into the NTX-43 clinical trial program in exchange for a grant of $35,000 and quarterly payments for the next 10 years. I froze. I was only 3, I whispered. Derek nodded, his voice tense. And you were never told or given a choice. They exploited you. I pushed my chair back, my head spinning. Fragments of memory began piecing themselves together into a horrifying picture. Doctor visits with strangers, medication that kept me drowsy all day, lab tests I always attended alone. That wasn't all. Derek opened another medical report, marked in glaring red text. Severe side effects observed in NTX-43 group after 5 years of use. Survival rate past age 15, 11%. I held my breath again. How many kids were like me? I asked, my voice trembling. 27, Derek replied. 24 of them died or suffered major complications. One's living in Europe, no contact. One died in a car crash at 16, suspicious circumstances. And you're the only one left. I held my head in my hands. So that means you're the only survivor in the country, and you're still able to speak the truth. In that moment, I couldn't even name what I felt. Fear, rage, or just sheer emptiness. The betrayal by my own parents was something no words could fully capture. Derek pulled a printout from his pocket. It was an email between Neurogene's lead researcher and a subordinate. Subject NTX-4317 is still alive. Recommend close monitoring. If necessary, initiate erasure protocol. I went cold. NTX-4317. That was me. What do they mean by erasure protocol? I asked, my heart pounding. Derek didn't answer right away. He pulled out a crumpled piece of paper and laid it on the table, typed across the center. You weren't meant to survive. Stop, or disappear. I swallowed hard. Someone's been watching us? I asked. Most likely, Derek replied, glancing out the window into the still pine forest. I think they know you're alive, and they're afraid of what you might say. The entire cabin felt colder. I hugged myself, trembling. But somewhere deep inside that fear, something else was rising, an ember of fury, slow but burning hot. I'd been deceived, used, discarded. But now I knew the truth, and I was still standing. I was no longer that helpless girl left by the roadside. I was the last surviving witness, and they would be held accountable. I was no longer the girl who collapsed by the roadside. 3 weeks after Derek saved me, I had started to rise, literally and figuratively. Thanks to the recovery regimen Derek created, with help from Jasmine Lee, a former military medic and his longtime friend from his Montana days, I gradually learned how to manage my seizures. Jasmine, who once served in Afghanistan, now ran a small clinic in Helena and visited our cabin every week to guide my physical therapy. "You don't need to run," she said, voice firm. "Just learn how to take the next step in the right direction." And I did. At the same time, Derek and I began tracking down someone named Dr. Meredith Hawthorne, a scientist who once led the clinical research team at Neurogene but had withdrawn from the project in 2018 after an internal dispute. "He once appeared at a bioethics conference in Boston," Derek said while searching on his laptop. "After that, she vanished from the scientific community." With a bit of boldness and a lot of persistence, we got in touch with her through a university professor who knew her. At first, she refused to meet, but when she heard the name NTX-43, her voice faltered. "I thought all the children were already—" She paused. "All right. Meet me at St. Clair Church tomorrow afternoon. No phones, no recordings." The meeting took place in a quiet prayer room, lit only by sunlight filtering through stained glass. "You're Nora?" she asked. I nodded. She stared at me for a long time, then pulled out an old paper envelope filled with internal documents. Emails, contracts, adverse effect reports, and a handwritten note with a clear signature. "Recommend halting Phase 3, safety insufficient." "This is the evidence you kept?" I asked. "Not all of it," she replied, "but enough to take them to court, and I'm willing to testify if you have the courage to bring this into the light." I gripped the folder tightly and nodded. 3 days later, the cabin was broken into. We weren't there when it happened, thankfully. Derek's security cameras captured 2 men in black clothing, faces covered, ransacking the entire place. They didn't take any money, they only took documents. Derek quietly pulled a small hard drive from beneath the wooden floorboards in the bedroom. "I backed everything up," he said. "But now I have to go." I panicked. "Go where?" "They know about this place now," he replied. "I'll lead them off track. You and Jasmine take the back route to Lincoln City Hall. We'll file the lawsuit and submit the evidence by the book." "What about you?" "I'll be fine," Derek said, his eyes locked on mine with unwavering resolve. "It took me 9 years to find you. Now it's your turn to let the world know who you are." But we didn't make it in time. The next morning, Derek was arrested. The charges: obstructing law enforcement and unauthorized access to personal data. I knew it was just an excuse. A trap. I collapsed into a chair in the cabin as Jasmine placed a steady hand on my shoulder. "He planned for this," she said. "The legal files are ready. Only one step left. Go public." 3 days later, a girl once labeled a burden, stood at the podium during an emergency press conference in Lincoln's Civic Center, flanked by Derek's lawyer and Jasmine, standing tall like pillars behind me. Cameras flashed endlessly. Every eye in the room was on me. "Hello," I began, my voice slightly shaky. "My name is Nora Adams, and 3 weeks ago I was abandoned by my parents on the side of the road because of an illness they helped cause." The room fell silent. "They accepted money from a pharmaceutical company to enroll me in a drug trial when I was only 3 years old. I was never asked for my consent, and for more than 10 years I lived in pain, never knowing why. I raced a packet with Neurogene's logo and my parents' signatures. This is the contract they signed. And this," I lifted the folder Dr. Hawthorne had given me, "is evidence that the company knew the fatal risks and went ahead with testing anyway." My voice grew stronger. "I don't want revenge. I want the truth, and I won't stay silent one more day." Someone in the crowd began clapping. Then the entire room erupted in applause, waves crashing around me. I knew I had just started a long battle, but at least now I wasn't hiding anymore. I was stepping into the light. And this time, I wasn't stepping alone. 1 year after that press conference, I stood in the middle of a snow-covered field, smooth as silk, in Flathead Valley, Montana, a place that had once been a refuge and was now the official home of a dream called the Adams Project. Neurogen Inc. had collapsed like a sandcastle under a tidal wave of public outrage. Just 1 week after my live television interview, major national news outlets picked up the story. The Department of Justice launched an investigation. Dozens of victims and families filed a class action lawsuit. My evidence, along with Dr. Meredith Hawthorne's testimony, lit the fuse that blew the whole case wide open. The chairman of Neurogene's board, Mr. Maxwell Curtis, was indicted for concealing fatal risks in medical trials. 3 other senior executives were arrested for financial fraud and falsifying research data. The company's stock plummeted. Less than 3 months later, Neurogene officially declared bankruptcy. As for my parents, they had nowhere left to hide. Their bank accounts were frozen. Their names splashed across every local news outlet. During the hearing in Lewis County, they sat with their heads down as the prosecutor read the charges: child abuse, misappropriation of medical funds, and falsifying a missing persons report to cover up abandonment. What they once buried in the dark was now forced into the spotlight of justice. I didn't feel joy. I didn't feel satisfied seeing them punished. What I felt was peace, as if I had finally severed the toxic thread that bound me throughout my childhood. With the settlement from the lawsuit, after paying legal fees and assisting other victims, Derek and I began transforming the old cabin into a healing center, the Adams Project. Here we support victims of illegal medical testing, insurance system abuse, and children abandoned by their families, like me. Jasmine, the one who helped me stand during my darkest days, now leads the psychological recovery program. She often tells newcomers, "You don't have to be strong right away, you just have to keep going." One early spring afternoon, as the snow began melting into small streams beneath the eaves, I received a letter. A parcel from the hospice center in Billings. I knew immediately, without even opening the envelope, who it was from. Inside was a handwritten page, the ink smudged softly, like tears long since dried. "Nora, I don't have much time left. The doctors say just a few weeks. I don't ask for your forgiveness. I only hope you know that in these final nights, the only thing I see in my dreams is your eyes." That night, in the rain. We were wrong. Your father called it survival, but now I know it was cowardice. You were never a burden. You were the best part of me. Though I don't deserve it, if you can, please live a life that shines. Mom, Aileen. I read it to the end without shedding a single tear. Not because I was heartless, but because I had healed. That letter no longer had power over me. It didn't crush my chest the way it once would have. I folded it carefully and placed it in a drawer with other old memories, things I had learned to face without pain. That night, I stood in the backyard of the center. The night sky stretched above like a velvet blanket stitched with stars. Snow drifted down softly like confetti, silent and gentle. Derek walked up beside me, holding 2 mugs of hot cocoa. "You okay?" he asked. I nodded. For the first time in my life, I don't feel lost. He said nothing, just stood beside me, looking up at the sky. I whispered, almost to myself, "I'm home now." My story isn't just about seeking justice, it's about finding myself. From an abandoned child, I learned to rise, to fight, and to turn pain into strength. Out there, many others may still suffer, hurt by those who were supposed to love them most, but remember, you are not alone. Justice may be slow, but truth has a voice, and when you dare to stand up, you don't just save yourself, you light the path for others who are still lost. What do you think about Nora's journey and everything she went through? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to follow the channel to keep up with more powerful stories and deep life lessons about family.